Okay, so good morning, everyone. Um, Today we're continuing on with our readings in volume 2 of this book. Let me get myself so I can see what I'm doing here. Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Mary Stein and Thomas Arst. This is the second volume of 5. And I urge you to read this series. It's very useful and enlightening. Okay, I'm going to thank you, Art. Nice to see you. Happy Father's Day to you. And we'll be talking in a few minutes about how uh, all men should be fathers. I have a brief quote that I want to read to you, but I want to give it a few minutes for people to join us. So in the meantime, I will begin the preface to this essay by Gary Sparks. Gary Sparks is a Jungian analyst. I think he has his practice in Ohio, and here's what he said. The ancient Gnostic god, Abraxas, has a message for the 20th and 21st centuries. Whoops. Hold on just a second. Now I don't know if I'm online or not. Okay. Sorry. I usually have my cell phone on silent. I'm going to see if I can achieve that again, um, because I don't like it to ring uh, when I'm talking. And I almost never have it on, but I did turn it on yesterday. Um, and so, starting again, I'm reading Abraxas Then and Now by Gary Sparks from Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. The ancient Gnostic god Abraxas has a message for the 20th and 21st centuries. Although violence accompanies the return of Abraxas, the destruction he personifies paradoxically holds the possibility of transformation. The god plays a significant role in Jung's Red Book. Jung further discusses Abraxas in the visions of a female patient 20 years later. In addition, an additional 30 years place the name of Abraxas on the cover of an LP album by the same name recorded by guitarist Carlos Santana, and the album's artwork is psychologically important. After nearly another 50 years, a series of 3 recent dreams of a professional man in the second half of life suggestively portrays the Gnostic god. At each point in the analysis to follow, The dreams show the practical and enduring relevance of Abraxas as he appeared to Jung, first in his Red Book and subsequently continued to absorb him throughout his life. Abraxas and all he pretends would not leave Jung alone over his lifetime, nor will the god excuse himself from our time, as 3 present-day dreams confirm. Okay, this is going to be a goodie, and so I hope you'll stick with me today. And so in the Red Book, so make sure I can be heard. Is everybody hearing me all right? Please let me know on the chat if you cannot. I think you can, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, the Red Book. Jung's soul does not mince words. She says to him, I want to set to work, but you must build the furnace. Throw the old, the broken, the worn out, the unused, and the ruined into a melting pot so that it will be renewed for fresh use. The Red Book concerns reevaluation, long-standing religious, moral, ethical, and philosophical views that are no longer adequate to the demands of the time are to be discarded, destroyed, and reshaped. Primary among those views is the prevailing interpretation of Christianity. Jung contends that the worn-out form of Western religion has been unable to protect civilization against the massive destruction of 2 of the worst bloodbaths in world history. That the Red Book and the soul's concern are to be against the background of this history is established by another of the utterances of Jung. Quote, I see the surface of the earth and smoke sweeps over it. A sea of fire rolls close in from the north. Unquote. The sea of fire is the impending catastrophe of World War I that was assaulting Jung's inner world in 1913. The events of the war and the recasting of values and understanding are threads of a common tapestry. Okay. Now, let me just look here. I wanted to read this Father's Day message that I had. Let's see. I have a Father's Day message from Bill Penzies that I wanted to share with you. And I shared with my 3 sons-in-law this morning. And so let me read it to you. And happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. But this doesn't apply only to biological fathers, but also to all of us who have served as a father figure in one way or another through our lifetime. And that includes you, Art, who have been such a guiding light for many men. So a message from Bill Penzies, which is food for thought for all fathers on our day. Quote, fathers, if you get a chance, check out the trailer for the new Superman movie. Seems pretty ripped from today's headlines. I am hopeful, and maybe like me, your emotions are a bit more raw these days. But what got to me was his Earth Dad delivering so well the message that at the end of the day, all you are the decisions you make. Damn straight. Who you are isn't what you own or how much you can loot. It's your choices in life and how those choices impact others that makes you, you. This is a message we all need to hear from someone important in our lives, and the gender of the person delivering it doesn't matter, nor does it matter if we are biologically related to the person sending it. What's important is the message itself. I feel so very sad for the president not having a real father figure in his life. I feel even worse for all those across the country who look to the president to fill a void their own fathers left. What a bottomless spiral of hurt and cruelty and now bloodshed this has set in motion. Then I look at the millions across the country who protested for health care, for the environment, for immigrants, for transgender kids, for women, and who did their best to get across that Black lives still matter. In the protesters, I see so much hope for a better future if we can just hold on through the now. Maybe you were lucky enough to have multiple dad-like people throughout your life. Maybe you are double lucky and they are still around for you to say thanks to today. If not, we can still thank them by honoring their honesty, decency, and empathy, by modeling their values for those who will take over for us after we are gone. Share love now more than ever. So that's the Father's Day message from Bill Penzie. And if you are familiar with Penzie's Spices, Bill Penzie is the founder of that company, and I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. And I hope you found that meaningful. And can everybody hear me? I hope so. And so going on now, going back to Abraxas. Okay. So this subtitle is called The Seven Sermons to the Dead. Abraxas receives considered attention in The Seven Sermons to the Dead, published within the Red Book in the section titled Scrutinies. In the Seven Sermons, the dead return from Jerusalem and approach Jung for help with their plight. They cried in many voices, quote, "We have come back from Jerusalem, where we did not find what we sought. We implore you to let us in. You have what we desire, not your blood, but your light." They are seeking light, that is, understanding. But for what? A hint of the answer is contained in the authorship Jung attributes to early editions of the Seven Sermons. Basilides, a Gnostic teacher who lived in the 2nd century of the Christian era. The Christian Gnostics held a view of Christian cosmology that was eventually declared a heresy by the growing church. Typical of the Gnostic view was at the creation of the world, God, or the feminine part of God, Sophia, got trapped in the world. The Gnostics were more interested in direct emotional experience of God from within the world than through the church as an intercessor between themselves and God. And I would just confirm that I feel this way too, that if you have a direct experience of God, then you know. And going on, the dead long for the meaningful relation to God. In one sense, the dead are a portrait of the despair that swept over Europe as a result of the mass carnage of war. How could God let let this happen? People questioned. More generally, the dead symbolize the longing to recover what official Christianity has declared heretical in its repudiation of Gnosticism, leading to, in our time, to a sterile, ineffective, and unpalatable religious outlook for increasing numbers of people. The dead long for a complete experience and understanding of God that will satisfy them. Philemon, a figure representative of wisdom in the Seven Sermons, admonishes, quote, "These dead knew no way beyond the one to which belief had abandoned them. I teach in this way because their Christian faith once discarded and persecuted precisely this teaching, but they repudiated Christian belief and hence were rejected by their faith. They do not know this, and therefore I must teach them." Okay, so that is the lead up to Seven Sermons of the Dead. And Richard says, Gnostics got too involved with the mysteries and mistook them as a positive thing. Well, I think that we ought to re-look at the mysteries to the extent that we feel we have to look at only preachers or priests. I think that's too much. And Richard goes on, all good things come from God, but he offers a path of good or evil. Okay, well, that may well be. I don't deny that. And we really have to decide for ourselves what is good and what isn't. Okay. So the next subtitle here is Enter Abraxas. Abraxas is the fuller portrait of the sacred, containing what the dead seek and what the prevailing image of God in our time must recover. Philemon again, quote, Abraxas is the God who is difficult to grasp. His power is greatest because man does not see it. From the Son he draws the summum bonum, from the devil the infimum malum. And the point is that there is both good and evil, and we can't deny that. And I hope that has been clear to all of my readers and followers for many years. A sample of his attributes illustrates Abraxas's complexity. He is emptiness, he dismembers, he is warring opposites, he is the great and small Pan, he is Priapus, he is a monster, he is a hermaphrodite, he is the still united opposites that will give rise to consciousness. Abraxas is, quote, Abraxas is good, evil, and the fullness of the sun, the sucking gorge of emptiness, life, death, creation, nothingness, truth, lying, light, darkness, the striking lion, the warm spring day, love, murder, sickness, wisdom, delight, horror, paralyzing, unquestionable differentiation, speech, deception, unquote. Hello, Amela. Welcome today. Nice to see you today. And so Cherie says, Happy Father's Day, and thank you for that. And also Deborah C., most people would rather die than admit they are wrong or are capable of evil. This is a serious problem for humanity, the othering of evil, absolutely. And Richard says, maybe do a show on the mysteries. I don't think some know what it's about or what happens. To me, it's like a raping of my spirit. Well, Richard, all of these shows are about the mysteries, and in no way am I trying to rape your spirit. I'm trying to give you a different perspective, perhaps, on your spirit, but not certainly not rape it. But anyway, anyway, Amela has joined me on the group chat, and hopefully she'll reveal herself in due course. But until then, I will continue to appear solo on the YouTube. Okay, so here's the modern dream. A modern dream from the series of three under consideration conveys that Abraxas is still alive and well. Quote, I am at a large outdoor festival. There is an area of sand sculptures. The sand sculptures are below me in sand pits. Among the sculptures, I see unformed shapes. I slide down into the pit. I see the image of a fierce god composed of many gods, lions and boars, and other fierce animals. I give this sculpture shape and form. I slide deeper down in the second pit of sand and see the form of Superman lying on his side in agony. I give shape and form to this image also. The fierce god composed of many gods is an image of Abraxas. These gods must be recognized, conceptualized, given shape and form in order to include them in the sweep of divinity and life. The details of the dream are instructive. A festival is a social event. The word originates from the 14th century and first signified a religious social observance. A festival brings together a community of common celebration. The events in the dream thus refer to our collective life and not merely the personal life of the dreamer. The fierce god is made of an assemblage of fierce animals. These gods are no loving force, but are made up of intense and potentially dangerous forces that have to be reckoned with. There is no protecting father here, but a swirl of intensity that has the power of recklessly destroying life. Coming to terms with these forces, as the dreamer does in the dream, and as the figure of Abraxas in Jung's vision implies, is the current religious task of our age. Sand is a malleable substance, and the dream suggests that facing, symbolizing, and ultimately coming into relationship with the fierce animals is not an impossible task for human hands. Sand as well can be an ingredient in concrete, hence the foundation of a construction that possesses strength and strength and endurance. As in Jung's visionary experience of Abraxas, the wild god in the dream waits for recognition and incorporation into this era's personal and collective religious life. So we have to remember that when Jung is talking about these things, Jung is talking about something that's going on in all of our unconscious minds. And if we fight it, we deny it. And that's probably not healthy. Let's see what else. Deborah says, well, first of all, Richard says, I'm talking about the tactile mysteries, the ones that touch you physically. I think Jung referred to it as the reward or the goal in alchemy. And Deborah C. says, I've had some profound experiences, but they're uniquely mine in the sense that I can't expect others to believe or share in those subjective experiences, obviously. And Cherie says, listen to the music and lyrics of Jung's analysts of uh, Fionn Paul, quote, Jungian song with the help of John Hollis, quote, Greenland, unquote, and subarctic. I couldn't stop listening this morning. Interesting. I don't know if this. Deborah, it's the sexual mysteries I'm referring to. And yes, those are mysteries, surely, but to me, the mysteries do not require sexuality. Obviously, sexuality can be present and necessary in certain types of numinous experience. No doubt about that. But they're certainly not the only mysteries around. Okay. Let me just see how we're doing here. Okay. So overpowering essence of events. Philemon has something else crucial to say about Abraxas. He calls Abraxas the overpowering essence of events. If God made humankind in his own image, then one's grasp of oneself and one's understanding of God are parallel. What is excluded from the image of God is what is also going to be excluded from believers' understanding of themselves. The emotional and psychological qualities one does not recognize as belonging to God are the personal, emotional, and psychological qualities that individuals will have no responsibility to recognize in themselves and hence have no control over in daily life. The immediate implication of this statement about the overpowering essence of events is that the unrecognized qualities of Abraxas excluded from a general theology and from personal psychological awareness are exactly what a given generation lives out in war. Indeed, what has played out in the two world wars. The overall point is that what the members of a society exclude from their common God image is actually what determines events. Abraxas represents much of what one says God is not, but which in fact God is. Likewise, Abraxas represents everything the ideals of an age restrict from typical awareness, but which in fact break out in mass, often in savagely destructive behavior. This is Abraxas. Okay. I think we have to talk about this in terms of our current affairs now. Um,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead, Mela.
Good morning and
Good
happy
morning.
Father's Day to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, question. Uh, Abraxas is from where? Is he Hebrew,
Well,
like Judeo-Christian, or because I know that someone similar to him, a similar deity to him, would be besides Ares, which was described in this paragraph, would be Poseidon, at least in their features, in their by appearance.
yeah, well, Abraxas comes from the work of the Gnostics in the second century, and so not strictly speaking from Christianity, and probably that's why the founding fathers of the church didn't care for him. But obviously, there were exemplars of gods that humanity had envisioned long before Abraxas was envisioned. Um, and
I guess it all goes back to like the much older human civilizations, such as the Minoans or the I forget, it was it the Phoenicians? I think it was even before the Phoenicians.
so Richard believes that Abraxas is Greek, which would include the Minoans and the Phoenicians, I think. Um, certainly yeah, certainly the Phoenicians, because and the Minoans would have been descended from Greek culture that predates Christianity by thousands of years, I would say. And let's see, Archimedes says the egg is the world. Who would be born first must destroy a world. The bird flies to God. That God's name is Abraxas. Um, well, we have to get away from this idea of God as an objective thing or person that um, that exists. Obviously, the image of Abraxas, which appears on the cover of one of Jung's books or in the frontispiece of it, um, is not a possible being. It has a lion's head and a human body, I guess, and uh, I think it has a tail and so on. So it was so the image that the Mithraic religion came up with of Abraxas was this multifaceted creature that doesn't exist, and it was their sort of primitive way of getting their mind around how all these functionalities have to coexist. And where do they coexist? They coexist in the human psyche. Okay. And it's like all opposites. Those opposites coexist in our psyche, whether we want them or not. and and so what we need to do is to balance all those forces, and there are thousands of them, if not millions. Um, let's see. Cherie says, my first word as a child was light, as told by my mama and papa and grandpa. There was my dream, but it was real. Um, and Cherie says, I wasn't taught that word. Interesting. Um, who knows what we were taught and what we weren't taught. The things come into your mind that you're not very conscious of at the time, I would say, as an infant. Um, so let's see. Richard says all the heathen deities stayed the same, but acquired different names through the millennia and cultures that worship them. Well, I think all is a little bit broad because I think that there were gods before there was Zeus and Kronos and the Titans. Even before that, there must have been the idea of God that came down to us through our ancestors, but who knows? Is it a chimeric entity? I don't really want to say that it was chimeric. I mean, chimeric says now you see it, now you don't. And I think these entities indeed exist. They exist in the psyche. And whether you see them or not is your task, something like your task. I don't know, is that helpful? Whether, you've got to um you have to live with the opposites and all the opposites, not just good and evil. I mean, good and evil is just an easy thing, and masculine, feminine, those are just scratching the surface of the opposites. And so we're talking about opposites way, way down in in the psyche that indeed do exist in both forms in everybody's psyche. And yes, they've been depicted in different ways by different artists, but nonetheless, they're surprisingly the same. If you go around the world, you'll find that the images of gods are very similar. Um, So Richard says, my personal beliefs are that the myths are provided for us to learn lessons from, seeing as they mostly ended in tragedy. Um, yeah, I think storytelling is the way we convey certain information. Nowadays, we convey it through movies, through this kind of discussion, and through every manner of art. Okay, it can be, you can have a ballet about it or what have you, and you'll zero in on something, but probably in the end you can't grasp the last little bit. It's pretty hard, um, and so it's best to circumambulate the center of the circle and look back toward it, and at any given moment try to understand where you are in that circle, I suppose. I don't know. Does that make sense to you, Mala? I'm losing my head here. So,
No, I'm just trying to understand it all.
well, it's by definition, it's impossible to understand. Deborah says the Pilgrim's Progress is like that. I saw a lithograph of that uh, when a child, and also some medieval art, which horrified me. It was representation of hell from what I can work out. Trying to recall who the artist was. Okay, well, We have a representation of hell right now going on in the Middle East and in across the world because um, all of a sudden Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided he's going to try to destroy Iran's nuclear capability. And I suspect more likely than not, you can put a pin in it for future reference, but more likely than not, what we've done is spurred the Iranians into finishing their bomb so that they can demonstrate that they have a bomb. Let us pray that they don't demonstrate it in the atmosphere. Um, yeah, and
There are laws for that, aren't there? Laws for that the prime minister wasn't supposed to do that because there's some kind of nuclear weapons agreement or something like that.
well,
I'm pretty
I
sure.
mean the nuclear weapons agreement is mutually assured destruction. Okay, and that's not an agreement per se. It's just a recognition of the fact that if we fire off 23 nuclear devices, we're all toast. You know, and
For
and,
real.
and very literally cooked, right?
A lot of people, and it bothers me because so many people think, oh well, I could always duck and cover, I can go in the shelter, blah blah blah. But that's not going to work because if I go into one of the tunnels here in New York City, or if someone goes
Yeah,
into one of those Russian subway tunnels in
yeah, yeah,
Moscow,
yeah.
and you can find that maybe you might not have service, but radiation can still catch on to you because it'll be in the air.
Well,
Radiation can still be in the air, and if even if you don't get toast, you might get toppled over by
yeah,
debris from buildings, and there's so many buildings nowadays.
yeah,
It can't
and
be 6 stories anymore, it's got to be 50.
well, and
So
the
no.
point is that if 23, according to scientists now, if 23 nuclear weapons are detonated in the atmosphere, all life on Earth will die. Okay, and it's it's
It's not pretty. It's like Mad
no, it's
Max
not pretty. It's not.
from hell.
There's no end there. It's pure hell,
No.
and dying that way would be pure hell. And
Like the
yeah,
beginning of Terminator.
yeah, and I right, and I pray that our president will stay out of getting into the battle in the Middle East, but I fear that he will get into it. And
Saudi Arabia tried to pacify him, by passing the pacifier of $1 billion, but that wasn't enough, apparently.
oh, that's definitely not enough for him. Um, and Deborah says, I remember the Bay of Pigs nuclear crisis, and the vibrations of the time were so bad. My body ached from stress, and I was just a child. I picked up on the stress in the body of my parents. And yeah, um, I was a little removed from it personally because I was in high school, but I was in high school in Japan. And so I did not feel the American angst directly um, where I was in Japan because it seemed far away. And my father was during the Bay of, well, let's see, was it the Bay of Pigs? No. Um, yeah, I mean, so it was something that I read about in Time magazine, and it was very removed from me. But I have no doubt that if you were in the United States, and especially if you were in Florida and some of the southern states, which are so close to Cuba, that it would have seemed quite real, and very stressful. Um, yeah, and Deborah says this is like a replay because we collectively haven't learned our lessons. Um, and Shuri says, one brother of mine, 18 years older than me, was in the Navy in the Bay of Pigs. Oh my gosh. Um, well, I was in the Marines during Vietnam, and we just need to step back from the brink. And in one way, yesterday was a problem because in one sense, it squelched the president in his war parade because it pulled interest off his war parade. But the problem is now he's got a nice graces where an ally an ally of ours, Israel, is in fact in a shooting war that's killing people in both sides of the equation, and they're lobbing missiles back and forth. And it doesn't, and so, I think um, collected wisdom is that over going back to Thucydides, that if you have a war, people will rally around the flagpole. And they obviously weren't rallying yesterday because I understand the stands in Washington were about half full. But we'll see. Um, I'm I'm not sanguine that there will be nothing happening uh, that involves us. And if it involves us, it can involve everything because we can obviously can have agents embedded throughout the country from all these countries. Um, all right, so let me read on with the so let me read on with this essay. So now the visions seminar is what Gary Sparks is talking about. 2 decades later, Jung returns to Abraxas and the transformation of God in the visions of 28-year-old Christiana Morgan, an American woman who worked analytically with Jung in 1926. As Abraxas contains what has been excluded from the Christian God image, and thus the aspects of one's own personal makeup that one has no way of consciously and responsibly relating to, the presence of Abraxas image in our time will bring with it naturally the onslaught of energy that has been excluded in a world overseen by a good God, a God that is light only, a God that excludes the complexity that Abraxas embodies. The Christiana's visions evidence this onslaught. Yeah. I mean, I've started to have dreams again. I had a dream last night, and I usually don't have dreams anymore. So, okay. So Christiana's visions evidence this onslaught. This is one of them. Quote, I beheld a woman grown into the earth. Her hair was in half stagnant pool of water and swayed slowly back and forth. She was in travail, and I stood while she gave birth. From a white placenta emerged a creature in the shape of a child. It had 4 eyes bulging bulging forth from its head. Its hands were clubs. The hands were claws. The breasts of the woman were dried up. So the creature, meaning the child, crawled to an iron wolf which stood nearby, and the wolf suckled it. The initial image speaks of stagnation, which would refer to the patient's feeling that life and growth had become stagnant. The dream's figures swaying back and forth elucidate that the patient feels one thing one moment and another the next, back and forth with no forward movement. However, the patient's conscious acceptance of the feeling of being torn and stuck makes it possible over time for the dream birth to occur, signifying an independent development within the dreamer. The predicament is, however, that the child born is very problematic. The child is born from the placenta. Jung interprets that the child is a spiritual child. That is, a spiritual child and not a literal child is also understood by its four eyes. Such symbolism marks the child as an image of wholeness, of future completion. This distressing fact remains, nevertheless, that the child is a violent image. Jung links this child to Abraxas. Okay. Yeah, I suppose. Um, let's see. Whew. I just think about how we're all ignoring what's going on in the Middle East, and what's going on in the Middle East is non-trivial. Okay, there are these two countries that up to now have held back on firing their missiles at one another, or up to, let's say, the last year and a half or so, when about a year and a half ago, I guess, the Iranians did fire 1,500 missiles and drones and so on, and they were all caught and shot down. But now, um, we've actually got some getting through. And so we really have to think about, and it's very painful to think about, what can happen now. Um, and well, let's go on. All right, so the monster. Think, okay, here we go. The monster, and there's another title after this called Sexuality. That should interest you, Richard. Okay, so the monster, thus the birth is cast in highly destructive attributes. Jung continues, the new development begins practically with a childbirth, but the birth is a very monstrous creature. The clubs and the claws attest to this. The bird shows a more aggressive and dangerous thing, such as it was suggested by the Abraxas vision. Abraxas is always represented with a whip or a sword, and okay, sorry, I'm Dozing off. Oh God.
It's okay. I'm looking at something right now, but I can't access it. It's on Pinterest, and it's the zodiac signs, the black zodiac. Because when I did some little research, I found that the Gnostics believed that Abraxas is the deity of the 365 heavens. So that being 365 days more or less. And then there's also, it led me to the AI bot, led me to the black zodiac, unmasking the spirits within. So I don't know if you want me to share the screen so I can
Yeah.
show
Why
you.
don't you try to share the screen? That's why I gave you co-host powers.
Oh, cool. Ooh. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's odd. Because I'm on my new device, so I don't know how much power I have here. You are now live streaming view full screen. One share screen. Share screen. Okay.
Then it'll give you a choice of which screen you want to share.
Huh. Well, I might have to okay, I have technical issues. We'll get back to me.
Okay. All right. So let me see if I can read on here. Thus, the birth is cast in highly destructive attributes. Jung continues the new develop. Jung continues. The new development begins practically with a childbirth, but the birth is a very monstrous creature. The clubs and the claws attest to this. The birth shows a most aggressive and dangerous thing, such as was suggested by the Abraxas vision. Abraxas is always represented with a whip or a sword and a shield. You find that the god is really warlike. His weapons are like the sign of power. He can use his whip on you. Our patient's unconscious points to the birth of a most dangerous warlike spirit, much like the potential violence of the modern dream of the fierce animals. Christiana's unconscious presents a similar portrait as the festival in the dream suggests a collective meaning to the image of the fierce animals. Jung proceeds similarly to his interpretation of his patient's vision from that wider horizon. Accordingly, the substance of Jung's discussion considers the birth of this child from a collective perspective. The birth in Christiana's personal life, which also receives his attention, is at the same time a portrait of a collective development in humanity as a whole. Jung comments, quote, just emerged from the bloodiest war in human history, we are surely not on a bed of roses, and we don't know what a new spirit might look like. When the spirit changes, there are usually very disagreeable questions to cope with. So I must say, I am quite interested in this child. The monster Abraxas symbolizes or personifies the hidden meaning of a situation or an epoch of history, as well as of human development or human being. He, the monster, will do terrible things. He he will wade in blood. that is also the negative aspect of a new concept of God. So all we can say about this monstrous figure is that it is the hidden meaning of a God that is in the state of development. For it is in the state of being nourished by the wolf it is a newborn God in its negative aspect. The idea of a new God always comes into existence when an old concept begins to break up. The unconscious then prepares a new idea. There are always periods in history in which the concept of God as valid and continuously believed, and then follows another period to which this image decays. And I'm sorry, I'm losing it because I'm zoning out to a vision of what I'm reading. Okay, I'm going to start that sentence over. There are always periods in history in which the concept of God is valid and unanimously believed, and then follows another period in which this image decays. And in those times, such creations are to be found in the unconscious. One could say, therefore, that it is more a symptom of the whole present day humanity than of our particular patient, unquote. Okay, I'm going to look back and see what you're saying at the moment. Yeah, Archiphany says the god Abraxas signifies the union of the whole, the totality of existence. This process, individuation, theosis, deification, the great works, etc. And Deborah says, Cherie, it's interesting that Camus was seen as an existentialist, but in fact, he was pointing out and exploring deeply moral questions. Yeah, interesting. These guys were definitely doing a lot more than met the eye. Um, and we're pretty superficial in what we've looked at. Okay. All right, so reading on now. As already noted and here stressed, Abraxas represents all those qualities, all those aspects of life that are excluded from an epic's ideal of the sacred, that is, from an era's understanding of God. Those aspects are not allowed to enter normative awareness. Thus, responsibility is never taken for them. But this chaos is in the service of a new and workable grasp of the functioning meaning and purpose of life. Hotter is sacred. Honoring as sacred those aspects of the conventional religious belief designates as sinful. Abraxas and the qualities he represents are now pressing for inclusion into the language. And the first stages of this process are horrific and human being. Just lost it again. Okay. I'm almost finished with this segment of this reading. However destructively Abraxas has surfaced in the last century, but ultimate presence can be a creative one. The second dream in the series of the contemporary dreamer presents this with succinct clarity. I'm in a church. The religion here seeks the sacred in discarded and overlooked things. Abraxas is surely part of this, discarded and overlooked things. As the longing of the dead suggests, Christendom has excluded whole worlds of emotional and spiritual experience in its rejection of Gnosticism. This is not merely excuse me. It's not merely an antiquated effete and inconsequential recognition. A colleague reported she had planned to attend a conference on Gnosticism and the imagery of the early Gnostics. The conference had to be canceled because of the death threats to the presenter. A theologian who is well respected and international authority on on the early church. Such homicidal rage tries to push the discarded and overlooked things away from awareness. Yet, ironically, volcanic emotion consciously understood is a part of what presses for a place in the light of God. In sum, the task of our time, first seen in the Red Book and continuing its presence in contemporary dreams and events, is to return to what in human experience of the divine has been historically rejected, suppressed, and maligned. Then the challenge remains to find the sacred in it, enlarging and redefining, rebirthing our experience of the understanding of God. Okay, is this ever a message to us in our time? And I must apologize. I need to take a short break and I will be back. I'm going to mute myself, but leave my video on. I'll be right back. Okay, I just want to point out now that these sentences that Jung or that Gary wrote um, about the Red Book really apply to our time right now, even though this book or these essays were published about 5 years ago. We can say that it really applies to us today, to our January 6th crisis, and right yesterday, the murder of the Minnesota Speaker of the House and her husband, which is just incredible that this should speak to me this way, but let me read it again. In sum, the task of our time, first seen in the Red Book and continuing its presence in contemporary dreams and events, is to return to what in human experience of the divine has been historically rejected, suppressed, and maligned. Then the challenge remains to find the sacred in it, enlarging and redefining, rebirthing our experience and understanding of God. And so, can we think of any way that these events are rebirthing our thinking? I mean, obviously, we as a society were leaving a lot of people, including white people, out of our discussion. And, they've come back and said, well, this isn't what we wanted. And so they have done all kinds of things to our peace, I guess, in society. And so what can we do about it? That's the question. Um, let's see. All right, now I'm trying to follow this issue about Chomsky, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, certainly it's true that artificial intelligence is all mixed up in these issues and so on. And so I don't have any answers here. I only can point out that Gary Sparks is seeing in what Jung wrote 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, 110 years ago. Um, he's seeing what Jung wrote 110 years ago as sort of a precursor to what's happening to us today. And I can't deny that, not at all. Um, Richard points out AI can be used for evil or good, as it's a thing of God too. And I'm sure he refers to Professor Michael Parenti in his books. He also won the debate over Noam Chomsky. Um, the issue with artificial intelligence is how much control it has and whether it will succeed in gaining ultimate control. This is not a big prospect. And I would say that it will not gain ultimate control because the world is in infinite is in, infinite in the universe, and therefore, no matter how good it is, it can only control what happens on one planet, at least at the moment. And I'm not sure that there's enough time of evolutionary development for that to be of great significance to the universe, in my view, but who knows? Um, okay, so let's go on here because now we have sexuality, and this is what Richard wanted to talk about. So, all right. So now we're talking about the subtitle is sexuality. We're reading from Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Mary Stein and Thomas Arst. And this is volume 2, page 116. That's where we are. Okay, after the birth of the child in Christiana Morgan's vision, images of sexuality begin to appear in her subsequent visions. Jung comments, the very first problem that turns up after the most spiritual event of the second birth, the appearance of Abraxas, as beginning the process of the transformation of the God image, is the problem of releasing sexuality. Christiana Morgan's next vision is crucial. Quote, a great heat went through me, and when I lifted my foot, I saw a mark upon the sole, a Chinese dragon entwined upon the cross and above the cross of the head of a lion, unquote. In the Cain and Abel story, Abel was a shepherd, Cain was a farmer. Yahweh did not like Cain's sacrifice, he favored Abel's. So jealous Cain killed Abel. Yahweh then reversed his position and promises Cain that he, Yahweh, will protect Cain, the mark of Cain. One sees that what ambivalence Yahweh has at that point. First, he persecuted Cain in rejecting Cain's sacrifice, then he protects Cain. Jung adds, therefore, Cain had inferiority feelings about his innovation, so he killed Abel, a nice, pious boy with no ideas at all, apparently, who followed the approved ways. Jung links the mark of Cain with the Chinese mark on the sole of the patient's foot. That mark is the guilt an innovator feels for being a pioneer. Accordingly, the presence of the monster in Christiana's psyche is a singular instance of the societal change to consider all those forces that have been excluded from the conscious values of Christendom. That complication in Christiana's unconscious is the individual record of what is also seeking to occur on a wider scale to answer the contemporary religious crisis of the 20th and 21st centuries. She is going through the change in her individual life that is ripe to occur on a much wider social scale. She is being pressed to move beyond narrow thou shalt's prejudices, sacred laws, long-standing assumptions, and assumed delineations of the holy. Concerning these new beginnings and on the mark on her foot, Jung remarks, the lion's head on top of the dragon below on the cross is a very special condition. It is the condition of the beginning where things are still in the unconscious form, not yet made of realized not yet made or realized consciously. There's a very significant Gnostic symbol where the lion's head is on top of the snake underneath, is on top and the snake underneath. Okay. All right, let me look back here. Yeah, Arshfun quotes Jung's first chapter in the Red Book, which is a very powerful quotation. Power stands against power, contempt against contempt, love against love. Give humanity dignity and trust that life will find the better way. I think it is a real and present danger, especially as its role in influencing voters crucial. And Archifanes says, the one eye of the Godhead is blind, the one ears of the Godhead is deaf. The order of being is crossed by chaos. So be patient with the crippledness of the world and do not overvalue its all-consuming beauty. Again, from Jung's first chapter of the Red Book. And Richard says, I'm blushing right now. Cherie, amidst lava and moss, I choose to install my soul where geysers sung or and the polar night uh, took its toll. And Deborah, a lot of corporations are struggling because consumers are rejecting status items that were previously clamored for. This is fascinating to me. The corporations like LVMH are just stunned, I think is the word. Stunned, yeah. Sherry, I make terrariums with moss and lava rocks. Synchronicity strikes again. And Sherry, I sought solar in the vastness, but the silence so deep, but in the quiet of my own heart. From Fionn Paul, listen to me, to his music. Okay. And she says it's from the Jungian song Greenland. It is good as Enya. Okay, I guess I have to write that song name down. Um, okay, she was talking about Enya. Um, Reading on here. That symbol, of course, is Abraxas. Abraxas is usually represented with the head of a fowl, the body of a man, and the tail of a serpent, Jung remarks. Quote, this early symbolism occurs in this symbol in our fantasy. We have a god not with a human mind, but with an animal mind that is the sexual enthusiasm, the animal mind, not conforming to our spiritual expectations, but to our worst fears. That is, if anybody should be permeated by the released wave of heat, quote, eroticism, uh, he would feel that absolute blindness, that lack of direction, that chaotic lack of form and definition. He would present a picture which can only be paralleled by the mental picture of the world today. We have lost our direction completely. We are not sure of anything. There's only a blind urge, but to what we do not know. So this symbol not only fits our particular case, it is a symbol of our time as well. The discussion has turned from monstrosity to eroticism. Okay, well, this is us. Um, I guess we have to accept what is us. All right. Um, Going on, I guess there's a couple more pages here, so I'll endeavor to get through it. I seem to have lost Amela, so um, I am looking at the YouTube chat as well to see what your comments might be. Okay, the next subtitle here is Maddie Clarwine and Carlos Santana. A look at a modern painting, Annunciation by Matty Clarwine, elucidates the Eros theme. That the painting was struck a living nerve is confirmed by its presence in the cover of the album Abraxas by Latin rock guitarist Carlos Santana. The LP album, released in 1970, sold 3.8 million copies. A vast number of eyes have absorbed Clarwine's art. Okay, and his art is in the book. I'm afraid you can't see it here, but somebody could look up Annunciation. Is the name of the painting by Matty, M-A-T-I, Clarwine, K-L-A-R-W-E-I-N. That way you can actually see the image as it was originally produced. The artist writes of his painting, Carlos Santana saw a reproduction of the Annunciation in a magazine and wanted it for the cover of his all-time best-selling Abraxas album. I saw the album jacket pinned to the wall in a shaman's mud hut in Niger and inside a Rastafarian's ganja hauling truck in Jamaica. Commentary on the Clarwine website confirms that painting Annunciation represents the angel Gabriel announcing to Mary that she would become the mother of the Son of God. In other words, a new understanding of God is in the process of birth. Okay. I'll have to look that up afterward. Let us see if it's available on Amazon. And I can find Amazon on my home screen. Although it was there. And we'll call it Annunciation. Matty Clarwine. No results in that. How about by Carlos Santana? Also not available. Okay, so we have to do the best we can. Anyway, that's the title. I'll read on. A look at a modern painting, Annunciation by Matty Clarwine, elucidates the Eros theme. That the painting has struck a living nerve is confirmed by its presence on the cover of the album Abraxas by Latin rock guitarist Carlos Santana. The LP album, released in 1970, sold 3.8 million copies. A vast number of eyes have absorbed Clarwine's art. The artist writes of his painting, quote, Carlos Santana saw a reproduction of the Annunciation in a magazine and wanted it for the cover of his all-time best-selling Abraxas album. I saw the album jacket. Okay, so it had been seen all over the world. The twists of the Orthodox presentation of the event are noteworthy. Gabrielle is tattooed and sits astride a conga drum. Okay. Mary is dark-skinned, gorgeous, sexy, and sensuous. She is voluptuously naked and appears in full possession of her sexuality. The Holy Spirit does not enter Mary through her ear, but unabashedly visits her vagina, reposing squarely before her sex, celebrating her fertility and biological womanhood. On the left are would-be charm dancers, and in the middle of them is the image of the artist himself. The charm dancers of Niger yearly, quote, participate in a series of charm and beauty dances judged solely by women. During the week, women single out the most desirable men. As part of the ritual, would-be men decorate their faces to appeal to the women spectators. Men dance for the judgment of women. Further commentary to the painting on the artist's website elucidates the theme of Abraxas, although the title combined with the depiction of the Virgin Mary as a voluptuously sensuous Black girl is a clear challenge to our preconceptions. This painting can also be seen as a visual celebration of life on Earth in all its richness and diversity. Music, scent, sex, and sensuality, color, taste, texture, the eroticism of flowers, the sensuality of stone, the natural beauty of landscapes and of all fruits of nature are all represented here. Okay, wow. The shift from monstrosity to eros. The shift from monstrosity to eros is celebrated in Klarwein's Annunciation and its natural affinity to Abraxas. The birth of the new God, the birth of a new understanding of God, incorporating previously rejected elements such as Abraxas represents. The child that the Black Mary will bring to Earth is conducted in an atmosphere of eros and nature. The painting's celebration of eros thus confirms the thread developing over the decades from the Red Book, Monstrosity, to the Visions Seminar, Emergence of the Eros theme, by emphasizing that the new religious birth is embedded in eroticism and nature. Okay. The last dream in the series of The Contemporary Dreamer reveals an important detail in the Eros dream in Klarwein's Annunciation. I see a woman dressed in a dress, the blouse of which is half black and half white, the skirt of which is half white, half black. I call her the yin-yang woman. Eros is again present in the figure of the woman, insofar as the inner woman is the expression of man's eros. The critical detail is the motif of black and white. The yin-yang woman contains both the black, white, and the black, as does Klarwein's painting, which contrasts the white dove and the Black Mary. The contrasting shades of in the third dream, there writ large, reflect the same polarity between the white dove and the dark mother of a new understanding of God in the Annunciation. The meaning of this detail communicates much about the pertinence of the Abraxas image, particularly in its importance for the 21st century. As acknowledged roughly 100 years ago, Abraxas began as a monstrosity for Jung, and then Eros entered Christian visions and Jung's astute commentary on them. Then, in the captivating expression of visual image, the importance of that time is underscored in Klarweil's painting, I guess. The contrast of light and dark is likewise portrayed in Klarweil's work, particularly when compared with the contrast in the modern dream. This is to suggest that the solution to the problem of integrating the abominable qualities of Abraxas will gotta start that sentence over because I hypnotized myself again. This is to suggest that the solution to the problem of integrating the abominable qualities of Abraxas will not only have something centrally to do with Eros, but also, and more specifically, as evidenced in the dream and painting, with the white and black aspects of Eros, the polarity of Eros. Okay. Working up to it here. There's 4 more pages, and it's a challenge to read them all. Okay. Yeah, I think Cherie raises a good point. May we all unite together for a better world for humanity. Children and families running in all directions in fear and being slaughtered. It's hideous. I just Googled it. And ugh. Okay, Richard points out that Hieronymus Bosch painted things he experienced for a while in the same diminished fairy world aspects. Um, and, I have no doubt about that. These are real experiences. Okay. All right. So now Gary is talking about opposites. What is the meaning of this black and white? In his essay on the nature of the psyche, Jung describes the psychological energy as like a spectrum with 2 ends, an instinctual one and an archetypal one. One might equally imagine that psychological energy is like a continuum with 2 poles. And I want to come back to this sentence because it's an important idea. The instinctual pole consists of the drives and desires and inclinations of nature, the animal aspect of the body, and in other words, the archetypal pole is the image forming capacity of the instinct, whereby images are created that portray the bodily dynamisms of instinctual nature. Integration of the instinctual energy and the patterns is always through the archetypal image creating pole of energy, which forms the pictures of what is assaulting a person. Consciousness, then, through understanding that image, can enter into dialogue with what it needs to recognize appropriate and take the responsibility to come to terms with the instinctual assault. The image creating process of the archetype seems to possess a dim foreknowledge of an individual's life pattern to which so that the character of the archetype can be described as spiritual. The polarity of energy here Eros energy is pertinent to grasping the meaning of both the yin-yang woman and the Klarwein's enunciation. It is a small step to see the instincts relation to the dark earth of the Black Mary or the black colors of the yin-yang woman. An equally small step can recognize that the archetypes image creating and foreknowledge creating resonance with the white dove of the impregnating spirit in enunciation and the white pole of the yin-yang woman. The carriers of Eros, both in Klarwein's painting and in the modern dream, convey this reciprocal relation between light and dark, spirit and instinct, so fundamental to this therapeutic process. Whew. Okay. I feel like I have to lay down the material here, but it's just very difficult to read. You know, oh, wow. See if I can get through it a bit more. Okay, the next subtitle is an example. A dream from the analytic practice gives a practical example of that reciprocal relation between light and dark, between archetypal image and instinct. At times during the inner Jungian journey, we see this black and white continuum of Eros energy present in the erotic feelings that can arise between analyst and analysan. Consulting room experience affirms that the black, instinctual, earthly aspect of Eros is the bodily experience of sexuality, while the white, the dove as spirit aspects of Eros contains the meaning of the experience of the sexual desires. The following account is from the psychological journey of a woman in her mid-30s, about 2 years into her analytic work, which was characterized by a strong sexual attraction between both her and myself. The woman dreamed, quote, "In my room, the phone is ringing. I answered, and when I recognized the voice, Gary, I am able to see his face. He is speaking very softly, the sense of it seeming that he is giving me something, yet also asking for something. His features are changing, his face gradually appearing owl-like. Now we are together in this room. His face returned to normal. He is kneeling before me, before an owl. I am not sure if Gary is telling me to open my eyes so I can see it or to watch until the owl opens its eyes. In the dream, she sees me, the analyst, as an owl, and then she discovers the owl in herself, or more exactly, as something in herself that is portrayed on the dream in the dream as an image of her personal inventory, uh, to which she can eventually relate. In other words, first she has an image of me as an owl. Then she uh, meets her inner owl as a dream image with which she can establish a relationship. When she initially sees me in me, the what she initially sees in me, she discovers symbolized as a separate entity in that dream, representing her own owl-like capacities that she can develop, fueled by our erotic attraction. She finds her next psychological strength and in step into countenance of my face. Unquote. This is a big. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. I just get into certain levels of this, and it just sucks me in. Yeah, Amela says what I can do to create a folder on Pinterest and Google Documents, and you can access it. Let me uh, brainstorm with you, Skip, on how to make the highlighted contents accessible. Thank you. That would be great. Okay. All right. This is a vivid example that the way we see another person with whom we are erotically fascinated is a purposive presentation of the next step in our psychological development. The analysand is fascinated with me because I have a certain characteristic in her perception. But soon the characteristic becomes the possibility of recognizing the part of her own psychology, her own personality that is analogous to her perception of me. We were pulled together. We were pulled toward each other by Eros, and then in the fire of attraction, while keenly mindful of professional boundaries, we came to see that desire carried a message for her, increasing maturity in dream work. This message is what is meant by the spiritual aspect of Eros, the message aspect of instinctual desire, the white of the dove and the white of the yin yang woman. The biological desire itself is the dark earthly connection between myself and the analysand, and Black Mary, the dark half of the yin yang. Yin yang woman's clothing. I'm sorry. All right, let me read that sentence again. The biological desire itself is the dark earthly connection between myself and the analysand, the Black Mary, the dark half of the yin yang woman's clothing. From her experience to our connection and its meaning, the dreamer is recovering her ability to see into the unknown parts of herself, and it is the knowledge of this ability that will build her confidence and empower her forward in life. Once the meaning of the desire is understood, The instinctual drive softens and becomes human. Its energy finds a place in near personal strength. I'm just going to read the last paragraph of this part of the essay. When the sublimity of meaning meets the fertility of earth, when insight and desire mix, integration of the fierce animals of the gods, such as those that make up Abraxas, becomes a human reality. Abraxas enters the human sphere as he enriches and transforms our most cherished sacred values. Okay, so conclusion. This is the last subtitles. Conclusion. The Abraxas who surfaced in Jung's vision releases a nexus of psychological events still intensely relevant in the 21st century. The current loss of the ability to believe seeks answers, sometimes in the voice of despair, sometimes in the coldness of cynicism, sometimes in the restlessness of greed. Jung's alternative answer circles around the assault of Abraxas and his problematic return. The problematic return we saw develop from monstrosity to eros to the polarity of integration, because it is through the image, the spirit in Jung's understanding of it, that we find portraits of what assaults us, so that we are not overwhelmed by Abraxas's intensity. Jung's position concerning instinct and image has been stressed. The realization and assimilation of instinct never takes place by absorption into the instinctual sphere, but only through the integration of image, which engulfs. Try that again. Jung's position concerning instinct and image has been stressed. The realization and assimilation of instinct never takes place by absorption into the instinctual sphere, but only through integration of the image, which signifies and at the same time evokes the instinct, although in a form quite different from the one we meet on the biological level. Through our inner images generated in emotional storms, we recover the lost sacred in life, denied by centuries of dismissal. This is the rebirth and transformation of the God image. Then Abraxas becomes creative. He hones our recognition of okay, in the last paragraph. Then Abraxas becomes creative. He hones our recognition of who we are. He recasts our life and times, as Eliot has versed, quote, in a different form beyond any meaning we can assign to happiness. Woo! Wow. That was an experience, and you have seen it here live. Um, I'm sorry I have had so much trouble staying awake as I've read it. Deborah says, I use astrology as a vehicle, but most of the time on YouTube, keeping up with events. Black Moon Lilith, for instance. Lilith's meaning is often associated with the archetypal of Lilith in Jewish Mesopotamian mythology, who was Adam's first wife and was banished from Eden for refusing to be submissive. This narrative highlights Lilith's defiance and independent spirit. Amela, what a wonderful, that is wonderful, Deborah. Astrology seems to be a universal theme in several ancient civilizations. Many cultures use astrology for personality types, prediction of offspring, and meteorological events. And Deborah, thanks, Amela. I put it down and come back to it as needed. Okay. All right. Well, so Amela, if you can create a Pinterest page for us of these things, that would be very helpful. I am sorry, folks, but that was a very tough passage to read. And as I often say, sometimes you can be hypnotized by something you're reading. And it happens to me occasionally. And there's a footnote here that's worth noting because it refers to Superman. A full treatment of the Superman image is beyond the scope of this essay. Jung spent 1,544 pages discussing the Superman in seminars on Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. In a simplified nutshell, the Superman is, in the best sense, is the person who is fully human, as opposed to Nietzsche's understanding as the person who is perfect. Again, in the best sense, I understand the suffering Superman in the dream. We refer to the interior suffering occasioned by recognition that we are a pale reflection of what our humanity genuinely affords. I certainly am all of that. So I do apologize, everyone, for the fact that I was losing it for much of this day. It's been a very intense period for me. We had our last day of school last Friday, and tomorrow is the last day of school for teachers, which will allow me to check out of school for 2 months. And so during that time, I intend to take some serious rest and hopefully get my psyche back in condition for the coming school year, which will be here all too fast, I'm sure. But I will endeavor to be here next week, as I am every week. And so let me leave you with the one thing that I started with today, and that was the quote from Bill Penzie. So this is a Father's Day quote, and I read it at the beginning, but I'll read it again because you might not have been here. A message from Bill Penzie, which is food for thought for all fathers on our day. Fathers, if you get the chance, check out the trailer for the new Superman movie. Seems pretty ripped from today's headlines. Speaking of synchronicity, right? I am hopeful, and maybe, like me, your emotions are a bit more raw these days, but what got to me was his Earth Dad delivering so well the message that at the end of the day, all you are is the decisions you make. I'll read that again. At the end of the day, all you are is the decisions you make. Damn straight. Who you are isn't what you own or how much you can loot. It's your choices in life and how those choices impact others that make you, you. This is a message we all need to hear from someone important in our lives. And the gender of the person delivering it doesn't matter, nor does it matter if we are biologically related to the person sending it. What's important is the message itself. I feel so very sad for the president not having a real father figure in his life. I feel even worse for all those across the country who look to the president to fill the void their own fathers left. What a bottomless spiral of hurt and cruelty and now bloodshed this has set in motion. Then I look at the millions across the country who protested for healthcare, for the environment, for immigrants, for transgender kids, for women, and who did their best to get across that Black lives still matter. In the protesters, I see so much hope for a better future if we can just hold on through the now. Maybe you were lucky enough to have multiple dad-like people throughout your life. Maybe you are double lucky and they are still around for you to say thanks to today. If not, we can still thank them by honoring their honesty, decency, and empathy, by modeling their values for those who will take over for us after we are gone. Share love now more than ever. Okay, so I hope that's useful. And hopefully I'll get some sleep this week so that might allow me to stay awake. And I'm not going to get into whatever witch it is we're burning this week. I'm sorry. That's a bit too much for me right now. Okay, so peace, everyone. Have a great week and happy end of school for all those that are involved in that.